Well, a few words about myself. I'm a bit multi-labelist person, labelist or multi-labeled person. And therefore, I like to call myself just a thinker and tinker, because I've been working between different fields, or I would say fluctuating between different kind of fields, such as art, design, engineering, philosophy, research, entertainment, and so on and so on. What I'm going to do now, just present a few examples, what kind of stuff I'm doing, to give you a sense where I'm coming from and to what kind of approach I take upon my professional practice. Then I'll introduce a bit, give a sense on my biography. And then the key presentation will be about one of the last projects, which is called Euthanasia Coaster. Basically a roller coaster which kills people. May I have a sound? This object is called domestic earthquake generator. It's basically a doorbell which consists of two boxes, a small one attached to a door, and a bigger one could be attached to whatever object you want, a table, a chair, a flower pot, a leg. It's up to you to choose. And what happens with these boxes? The smaller one senses the strength of knocking, and it sends data, transmits data to the larger box, which amplifies, exaggerates, dramatizes the vibration of knocking by 10 or 20 times. So the harder the guest knocks on the door, the harder the chosen object trembles. It's really a good means of animating objects, or at the same time breaking anything down. It's a small part of a larger project called Talking Doors. And we produced this object. We thought we would make it a mass production of it, but couldn't handle with that. So you see the equipment. The next object, or rather, the whole project is called Sounding Doors, as well part of Talking Doors project. The Sounding Door is basically a set of electronic equipment I designed to attach to a door and turn a door into a musical instrument and a stage at once. So what it does, it just plays compositions and sounds according to the speed, acceleration, and position of a door. The composition, I announced an international call for sound works dedicated to a door. About 100 composers sent me compositions. Some of them are custom programmed, some of them are linear playback files. So I uploaded them and organized sort of a door concerts where people sit in front of a building and see a regular people, visitors, just getting in, getting out. That's how we played with that. But later I was traveling with the same installation around the world, and some people bought as an object for their home to have a door. They chose doors not according to visual qualities of an object, but by the sound of hinges. So kind of they shifted their creative attention to sonic qualities of mundane thing. Sorry. This one was installed.
Lietuvos muzikos ir teatro akademijos lankytojai Vilniuje duris varsto su nuostaba.
At Lithuanian Academy of Music.
Priklausomai nuo dienos meto, peržengiant slenkstį juos lydi skirtingi garsai. Skambančios durys dizainerio Julijono Urbono projekto Kalbančios durys dalis. Autorius siūlo dizaineriams ir architektams įvertinti ne tik durų išvaizdą, bet ir improvizuoti jų skleidžiamo garso temą. Čia nerasite jokių tradicinių garsiakalbių. Garsą skleidžia pačios skambančios durys.
They would bring the appearance to this installation, prompt them sit in front of a building on a bench, and then they would go play hours. The next one, this project is quite different. It's a set of tools and pharmaceuticals designed for facilitating the procedure or ritual of vomiting. I'm not going deep into the conceptualization of it, but most of them have quite extensive conceptualization. Just giving you a sense what kind of stuff I'm doing. Now I'm going to talk a bit about my biography. I grew up in a Soviet amusement park. I didn't go to kindergarten. My father was a head of his Soviet amusement park, so the members of the staff were my nannies. And what's interesting about Soviet amusement park is that the entire Soviet Union was spread with these military-grade packages of amusement rides and layouts. The same packages. The entire Soviet Union was full of them. But they worked rather as, I would say, propaganda machines that soothed and relaxed the labor power from physical and mental exhaustion. In Lithuania, it was a bit different because we were quite critical and skeptical. We tried to fight with Soviet ideology. But that's how amusement parks were called. From Russian, it means park for culture and recreation. But you see the red star on top of it. And the same amusement ride where I'm sitting here, the guy with a blue shirt, it's called the Cabin Boy amusement ride. But if you find in other Soviet Union country the same amusement ride, you would find this bit with certain memorabilia and certain visual signs of Soviet Union. And once we became independent, I was 10 years old in 1991. What was unique, I witnessed this transition from communistic ideology embedded in a park to certain westernization of amusement park. Sort of, amusement or entertainment industry was sort of censored and manipulated, controlled by certain political powers. But once Lithuania became independent, the amusement industry was liberated and new forms of entertainment emerged. What would you do with a Soviet amusement park when people become skeptical, critical, and the numbers of visitors plummet down? So what you would do, you westernize it. You just dress up it in a plastic sort of simulacrum of it. And it was for me quite unique, but I just now, when I'm recollecting the retrospect, I'm becoming quite enthusiastic of how such an object as amusement park can have such an amazing power where you can immerse people in it and play with ideologies, politics, narrative, aesthetics, all these things intermingle in it. That's how I got obsessed with them. It had a dialogue with MA and BA level studies. I designed a sort of architectural proposal for amusement park, for the same amusement park where I grew up in. And I became a head of amusement park and ran it for 3 years. But I couldn't handle it because you have to work with lots of administration. And at the same time, I realized that I have quite a professional misfortune. I never liked to ride the rides because I'm quite prone to motion sickness. But this, intimate relationship with amusement park, and at the same time a critical distance to it, allowed me to take this object as amusement park as my basis on which I can do whatever I want. I can do artistic practice. I can consult amusement park owners and so on and so on. So that's how I live. And one of the last projects I did is the Euthanasia Coaster. It's a euthanasia machine in the form of a roller coaster, designed or engineered in such a way that it would kill with pleasurably and elegantly at the same time. So what involved in this whole project? I was consulting with a bunch of scientists, with roller coaster engineers, with physiologists, neurologists, with head of spatial disorientation lab in Imperial College in London. But we asked me not to reveal their names because we're afraid of having their names on that. So in the end, what we have, it was a sort of engineering or design challenge. What the ultimate roller coaster would look like. Former Philadelphian Toboggan Association president once said, John Allen, I think, once said, if the ultimate roller coaster is built when you send out 24 people and they all come back dead, and it could be done, So I took this as inspiration, as a challenge, engineering challenge, and I just designed a falling trajectory, which kills a person. But it kills in such a way that the death would be meaningful, ritualized, and would have different layers of aesthetics, personal and public. So what happens here? Basically, any roller coaster consists of one key part. It's the track, or what I like to call is a storyline of a roller coaster. It's just a falling trajectory, and that's it. All the engineering and design is structured around this element. In my roller coaster, you have two parts of this track. Is the tower, 500 meters tower, or so-called drop tower. And the second part consists of 7 vertical loops. So basically, you are towed up to the top, 500 meters. You're towed very slowly. And slow lift is very important in roller coaster because you have enough time to familiarize yourself with height, with surroundings, and at the same time you have enough time to contemplate on your decision in retrospect. You know, on top of it, there is a red button. Of course, there would be only one-seated car. On top of it, you give a last word. If you just change your mind, you can come back. But if not, you push the button, fall button, and you drop down 500 meters. It would look like a bit like this. And while you're falling 500 meters, you have this so-called hotline roll element in roller coaster, where you spin around your heart stays in a spinning axis, but your bottom spins around this axis. So it's a very vertiginous experience, but in case of my roller coaster, it's sort of vertiginous anesthetic. It prepares you for the level or fatal part of the roller coaster. And once you enter the loop, the first loop, you have such a kinetic energy that all of a sudden you're exposed to 10 G force. You weigh 10 times than usual. And this point is very interesting because your blood is rushed over slow extremities. There is no blood left in your brain, maybe some blood. And what happens? You lose color in your sight. You start to lose peripheral vision. You see just 2 dots. Then you black out, and then you just faint. And fainting is quite interesting. Faint, so-called G-lock or G-force-induced loss of consciousness, is interesting because once your brain concentrates on very vital activities of your body, it's very euphoric. People are quite euphoric. Usually pilots experience that. Euphoric and actually the most pleasurable death possible. You just enter the first loop, your body is numb, and that's it. You just die because of lack of oxygen in your brain. Your brain starves of oxygen. And why I have here seven loops. In terms of engineering, I need some redundancy. If you don't die on the first loop, the second would do maybe the job, but the last one would do the job for sure. And what's specific about the shape of a vertical loop? It is a clothoid shape, which is almost a teardrop shaped shape. It is unique because it sustains the same force on each point. So you have 10 G force all the way to the end. So it's not too much to injure physically, like breaking your spine, but it's not too less to get alive. But you know, it was a time, I think it's late 20s or 30s, when vertical loop was introduced. It was a regular circle, and people would faint, would break hands, and so on, so on. I'll show you later. To illustrate what would be like to sit in there, the best thing is to show what pilots experience. Pilots usually are trained in human centrifuges, and they are spinning around an axis quite fast to experience the same experiences they would have in high maneuvering aircraft. They are trained in a way not to be resistant to that, but to know how to fight with that. For example, squeezing muscles, breathing in a specific way, and at the same time using specific technologies like G-trousers that would inflate during high G-force load and keep the blood in upper extremities. So what happens?
Okay, we're looking for that dive Navy sticker. Once you found it and you're feeling primarily straight and level, a couple spins around the room there, let me know, okay?
All right.
Good to go?
Yep.
All right, remember, I'm going to give you the legs breath countdown, 7.5 Gs for 12 seconds, 4 breathing cycles. We'll be good to go, okay? Whenever you're ready, go ahead and enable that side stick. Stick is hot. Profile is running. Here we go. Legs. Breath. Come on, get into it, sir. Get on top. Breathe. 2, 3, breathe. There you go. Max legs, max glutes. Count it on your own, sir. There you go. Come on, keep it.
And you see what happens. You see what happens is a G-log. He loses consciousness, and no longer there is connection between the brain and body, and that's why he's relaxed. But once he come back, the brain gets a bit
Hey, sir,
of
can you hear
oxygen.
me?
And you see, usually, astronauts, when we get consciousness back, the brain is starting firing neurons again everywhere, and that results in a chaotic movement, violent movement of the body. What is the most interesting part in that it just 2 seconds, but astronauts and pilots would tell stories about their experiences and hours, because we have these so-called dreamlets, episodes of dreams. For example, this guy is going to tell his dream.
Put your head back, sir. Put your head back. Hey, can you hear me, sir? It's HM2 Moorish. Go ahead and what are you going to do if you hear that noise? Okay. How we doing?
Doing all right.
Okay, what happened?
I don't know.
G-lock?
Yeah.
Ring a bell? Did you have any dreams?
Yeah.
What'd you dream?
I was in a maze.
You were in a maze. Okay. Did you get out?
No.
No. Okay. All right. How you feeling?
Feel better.
Feel better? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You wouldn't experience that in my roller coaster because you would die. Okay, a little bit about the aesthetics involved in this roller coaster. In the beginning, I was just interested in sort of designing this trajectory, and that's it. But once I brought my roller coaster to public, lots of, I would say, different trajectories started to emerge. That some people would take it as an extreme, the extremist roller coaster. Others would take as, of course, euthanasia machine, and so on and so forth. And I started to become interested in contemporary euthanasia rituals or procedures. And I found these are usually so hospitalized, secularized, sterilized, that they are no different from a mundane, graft or injection of medicine. So why is that we remove death from our cultural life or world, that it doesn't get any specific meaning, just accept certain law or bureaucratic procedures of getting a permission to commit that kind of suicide. But I'm not encouraging, nor I'm discouraging, but I take this fact that it's already legal. If it's already legal in certain countries, why don't we make it more dignified, ritualized, aestheticized, or personalized? And one philosopher said, commenting on my roller coaster, said, yes, that we live in such a world where amusement parks and theme parks are taking over of churches and shrines because they are gaining the same spiritual effect of sort of self-improvement. Because if you look into numbers of visitors, you would see that these are millions of people that we go to amusement parks not just to experience thrill and amuse themselves, but also sort of self-improve in a way, socialize, relax, and so on and so on. So if we have such a model of a world, why don't us think about adjusting certain rituals to that, like death rituals? You know, I just was researching different kind of suicides, and I came across, of course, Golden Gate Bridge. I found that hundreds of people are traveling to Golden Bridge. Some of them traveling hundreds of miles, just because they want to have a certain kind of beautiful ritualized death. Sometimes they undress, neatly fold their clothes, they jump, sometimes spreading their hands, submitting themselves to air, to panorama. So it shows that we are not apathetic to certain aesthetic approach to death. It seems that we need that kind of meaningful to make our death meaningful. So in a way, if you think about this roller coaster as a machine to kill a human being pleasurably, yes, it is pleasurable in terms of physiological pleasure. But on the other hand, if you compare with other kind of suicide techniques like overdose, shooting yourself, these don't have a narrative. For example, if you take a technique of shooting yourself, it has no drama at all. You just shoot yourself, that's it. Overdosing doesn't have either. You are lying in a bed or somewhere else, and you wait for this moment, but you usually are not conscious until you die. But in my roller coaster, you have a sort of three-stage drama. You are towed up to the top, you have a time to think of your death. You fall down, you have a series of experiences, and your body becomes sort of a spectacle, a public spectacle, which is, I would say, is really specific in this case, that the roller coaster becomes a mourning machine, mourning sculpture, monument. So you can imagine, like, if it is euthanasia ritual, relatives or your friends would sit in front of it and would use it as a mourning machine. In case of execution, I don't know, maybe some people who suffered from some kind of criminal, they would see that as a different kind of spectacle. You can imagine this roller coaster as science fictional thing as well. This picture shows an episode from a Soylent Green movie, where euthanasia is depicted as a patriotic duty to sort of give a room for future generations. But in my case, this project is quite unique because the scientific and technological background of it, the basis of it, is real. It's just a blueprint. You need just to realize it. But what is not real, what is fictional, is the social reality of it. We don't accept it today. You can't imagine that it would stand somewhere in the middle of Wyoming. Because we have different kind of values and different kind of ideologies. So in this case, it is a social science fiction. And but it's not in the form of a text, not in the form of literature, even not in a cinematic kind of medium. but it is a tangible object. So why, for example, take design as a phenomenon, design as an artistic practice? Why can't we look into design as also an opportunity for dealing with different kind of genres as cinema, literature can offer? Why don't we have a horror design, porno design? You know, it's so neglected. But I imagine that there could be so many different types of or genres of design. So in this case, it's science fictional, social science fictional design. I design this object not to make it real, but to spark a discussion. To spark a discussion which is crucial for innovation. In this case, you know, I'm transcending certain boundaries or limits of cultural, bodily preconceptions, prejudices. And that's how this science fictional medium can help you to sort of simulate reality. You know, when it triggers imagination, sparks, engages you in the story, you can simulate, you know, economically and painlessly. What I'm just suggesting as a sort of specific approach, a sort of academic approach to design. And in this case, if you take these movies like Soylent Green, where euthanasia is presented in quite unique ways, like here, death passage is accompanied with beautiful imagery and sounds and music. We have Futurama's suicide booth, and so on and so on. But on the other hand, if you look into the past, you have a cyclone. You know, cyclone was so harsh that people come back, you know, unconscious, with broken bones and so on. And it's the only roller coaster which featured a nurse on duty. So it's not so science fiction when you come back a bit and you see that people had completely different perspectives upon technologies and frightening certain topics. Okay, I'm running out of time. I've just present a little bit what kind of feedback I got. It turned out that people so willing to submit themselves to the narrative of a project that over the last 3 months, I had 300,000 or 400,000 people visiting my website. Not, you know, let alone other websites and media. For example, just recently I got this email, a guy named with a name Jose or something. He asked me if I could take him as a guinea pig to this project. He misinterprets it as a real project, and I read further and I see that it's really creepy, that he is a potential suicide committer. And he asks me to give a priority in a queue. He thinks that there are so many people waiting for that. On the other hand, I get very technical and very professional feedback. On one blog, quite a popular blog, you know, there is just few sentences on my project and 100 paragraphs in comment section about the project. And there is one guy introducing himself as an aerospace engineer, writing a very formal, very official way. Dear editor, I am an engineer in some kind of aerospace company and so on and so on. I spent enough time to do recalculations of the project. I found quite a minor errors, but it's not the key point I want to take. the key problem with the project is that paraplegics wouldn't die because there's, if you don't have legs, there's not enough room for blood to pool. And then all that kind of stuff. Russians just recently did quite an extensive episode where they invited medical experts, engineers, priests, ethicists to discuss a roller coaster. But basically, they take this kind of sensationalist take on it. And usually I get, after these kind of programs, I get feedback like, I'm Nazi, I'm Hannibal Lecter. By the way, Hannibal Lecter is Lithuanian. And so that's it. Questions?